Thank you so much. Okay, so when we are creating a solid onboarding process, we're really establishing a positive long-term impression on our new clients, right? This is going to be our first impression. And it's something that's very important. And Right. So we have one chance to really make it amazing and wow them. And I don't want to say like all your processes need to be, balloons and confetti and things like that. No, but they do need to be efficient and they do need to be consistent. Okay. That's what our clients are looking for from us is consistency. One thing that I want you to think about when you're thinking about this process also is that we want to make it as simple as possible because each time we give them another piece to go through, we're risking a few things. We're risking maybe possibly losing them. They might get frustrated with how we're trying to get them onboarded, which I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have been in that situation before. And so we're going to risk them getting frustrated, bad first impression, or, just losing them altogether, which wouldn't be good. The other thing that you want to think about too, that we'll really go over next week is in improving your client relations. Are they going to want to refer you to somebody when they've gone through that broken process? So the answer is usually no. So a repeatable process that's simple for you and your clients, right? This is where we start off your client journey and we want to wow them. And so what I want you to remember is that this is the first piece in the client journey. And let me just talk about client journey for a minute, because I am going to say those crazy words throughout the webinar that you may not be familiar with, or you're thinking, Maureen, why are my clients on a journey? And so our client journey is really what we think about from our beginning to end of our relationship with our client, right? So for me, that may look like a continual journey from year to year, right? I'm not a transactional entrepreneur. I build relationships with my clients and hope to have them on board with me for a long time, where I do have some that are really transactions. Most of them are built on lasting relationships. And so that is part of our client journey. And so we think about that even starts when they're a lead, right? We've gotten a yes, they've come on board, we're onboarding them, we're nurturing them as a client. That whole process is, separate from this onboarding process, but just as important is how we nurture our clients. And that's going to go, their client journey is going to go all the way until we basically offboard them. And so when I say client journey, I'm talking about what we go through with our clients while we work with them from beginning to end. Okay. And so one thing that people, a lot of times it's when they're onboarding their clients, it's trying to remember everything. What did I do? What is my process? What did I send them already? Did I send that person a proposal? Oh my goodness, I forgot to send an invoice. I forgot to send the contract. I did this piece before this piece. We're just doing it differently each time. And I call it the curse of the entrepreneur, right? Because we are, most of us do have a creative piece in our mind. And so I don't know about you, but I'm always looking for ways to improve my processes. And so, and I've done that over the past 10 years. And so that's why, for the past couple of years, I'm pretty set in this is the way it needs to be done. We can't keep recreating the wheel. This works. We evaluate maybe on a quarterly basis to see, are these still efficient? Is this what's still working? Are we still accomplishing our end goal in an efficient fashion? And so that is how we can kind of tweak things and make changes as we go through, our time as an entrepreneur. But we don't want to continually be recreating the wheel. Okay. Okay, so instead of, this scattered process that a lot of entrepreneurs are on, let's set up a smooth, duplicatable, and automated process. Now I know a lot a lot of times the first thing that comes to people's mind when I say automated is no, they don't want to automate their processes. They are a person, personable. They don't want it to seem like a bot, or, just some automated response. And I'm with you on that. I don't either. Actually, when I get an automated response from a bot and you can tell, it kind of turns me off. So I'm very aware, how I want to treat my clients is how I want you to treat your clients. And so we think about that when we set up these processes, and how do we take it to a personal level? And I can also teach you all about how to keep the automations personal. And that's going to have to do with information that we collect from our clients, and information that we can collect in our onboarding process. Okay. Um, so what do I want you to take away today after this webinar? We've talked about the client journey. You've learned a little bit about what the client journey is. We're still going to talk about that as we go through. And, why are we even talking about this? So the reason that we're talking about this and that I have created this webinar is because when a lot of times when people are creating systems in their business, they're thinking about it from their perspective. And I want you to think about it from your client's perspective. While we want to make ease of use on your end, we also want to do that for our clients. Because like I said before, the more steps that we put them through, that is risking something happening with that customer, right? Even to the point of possibility where they just decide they're frustrated. Your processes are broken. They've tried to pay you. They've tried to schedule. It's all been difficult, and they're just turned off. Okay, and we don't want that to happen. Okay, so now let's take a minute and dig in to what we're really here for. So today we're going to talk about some real life examples. I am moving my Zoom people out of the way so I can see my screen. No more forgotten follow-ups and how to wow your clients. Guys, if I could have a whole webinar, which I could, about forgetting to follow up or not following up, and what could happen if you actually followed up with not only your leads, but your clients as well, what that could do to increase profitability in your business. And not only that, but how that is, that creates a strong relationship with those people, which is what we'll talk about next week. It's huge. Okay. I don't think Lisa's on here right now, but Lisa is one of my clients, and I know when I came on board with her over 3 years ago, she just, it was something that kind of fell through the cracks, and we created a system for her to follow up with these people that she had done business with, her lead nurture and client nurture, and that the result that we saw was astonishing, just by not forgetting to follow up. So we're going to talk about that. So why? So we've talked about first impressions. Guys, first impressions equal expectations. Okay. Our first impression, we're setting the bar through how we onboard our clients. We're kind of setting the bar with them. We're letting them know what to expect. And that could go either way. If that's a good process and they've had a great journey, then, that's going to show throughout your work with them, return, whether you have, your client journey is, one that lasts for a month or project based, or your, recurring monthly revenue from them, whatever that looks like, when they go through that process and it's a good impression on them, then they're going to be repeat customers and they're going to send referrals your way. So we want to set those expectations. One thing too that a lot of people don't think about is when we set those expectations, right? We're thinking about the expectation that they have of us and our business. But also, when you set that bar high, that is, inadvertently setting the expectation of what you expect from them, right? So if you're a good communicator, your processes are easy, you're easy to work with, those are things that are going to come over into how they work with you. And so that's just kind of a side note on how to think about setting the expectations, without telling them this is what I expect from you. You're doing it in a roundabout way. Okay. So this is just the first step, just one step in your client journey. And so we're going to touch base on the rest of our client journey next week and talk about improving our client relationships through the client journey. But today we're going to strictly stay with the onboarding. Okay. Okay. So what do we want to think about when we're creating this process? Or you may have a process and we're just looking to improve it. Okay. So let's think about let's just bring it down to as simple as we can and look at the definition of what streamlining means. So having been made simpler or more efficient or effective. Okay. That is as simple as it gets. So basically we want to take this piece of your business. We want to make it simpler, more efficient, and effective. Okay. Not too much, rocket science there. Okay. So this is what I want you to think about. What do you expect when you work with someone? We'll just go ahead and make this a little interactive. What do you guys expect when you work with somebody? You've hired a business to do something for either your business or to come into your home, and maybe they're cleaning it or cutting the grass or
to have communication and understand their process, right?
yeah,
To know what to expect.
right. Yeah. Communication is a big key. I even just right now, I ordered something off the internet last week, right? And they were having a Halloween 31% off on this thing I'd been looking at. So I ordered it and it said, 4 business days shipping or whatever. Haven't heard anything. Didn't even get thank you for your order. Didn't hear it's been shipped, anything like that. So I had to send them a message yesterday. And so they're like, here's the tracking. It's coming today. But, it had been 9 days. So yeah, if I would have had, right, some communication from them, even, an acknowledgement, thanking me for my order, I would have been like, oh, okay, they got it. And, it's on the way. So yeah, we really want to think about that communication. And like Mike said, I think the communication not only comes in like, hey, this is what we're doing for you, but on a continual basis, when we start talking about our client nurture, how we want to communicate with our clients and let them know what's up. And so I really want you guys to think about that, what you expect from others. Okay. And what you want your first impression to be on your clients. I don't want to get all touchy feely, but but it is right where when we talk about selling, we talk about marketing, we always talk about, that emotional piece that we want to get to people emotionally. Well, what if we, put that into, everything that we did in our business? I mean, I'm not saying that we need to get all lovey-dovey or anything, but if we really touch them, they're like, wow, they really seem to care. they're keeping in touch with me. They give me updates. We know what to expect from each other. I think that really can come through to them on an emotional level. Okay, so let's talk about what you're currently doing. Let's see. Ruth and Avril. So Ruth and Avril have a marketing agency. And I know that they have Kajabi. They do some workshops in Kajabi. They have HubSpot for CRM. They have some web forms. And so can you talk about the process of when your client says yes, what happens?
What happens when a client
What happens or what doesn't happen?
we open a bottle of wine and we celebrate.
Yes.
That's our onboarding process.
And then
Yes.
our bank link for deposits. So,
All good things.
yeah, then we offer them something.
Yes.
And all kidding aside,
We just did that.
we do those processes.
Yeah.
But the bank connection is one of the biggest ones we found, and
Right.
it's one that sometimes I think can get almost forgotten.
Mhm.
And it's one of those first things that, because we'll not do anything unless we're paid first.
Yes.
You know,
Mhm.
long history of not doing those things.
Yeah.
So that really is one of the first things we do.
Right.
And in our case, what we then will follow up with, besides, we also have a thank you, but
Right.
that generally comes from, for instance, last Friday, we just signed a client,
Mhm.
and then our response right away will be a thank you, blah, 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 that kind of thing. It's
Mhm.
not automated, but it is a bit of a cut and a paste thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And the next, because the first thing we do is a discovery or an assessment.
Right.
And so that stuff then goes off right away,
Okay.
as soon as we've received payment.
I think that it's a little easier to maybe show the automation on Kajabi when we do onboard people into our programs.
Right. Because you guys
there-
kind of have two sides of things. You have the people coming into Kajabi for that
Okay.
offer, and then you have people coming on to work more one-to-one with you, right?
Exactly.
Correct.
Okay.
Exactly. Two
Mhm.
various things.
Right.
It could be that program is generally for solopreneurs and small businesses that are doing it themselves.
Right.
And then there's a whole onboarding process there too.
Right.
What I'm referring to is more when we're working one-to-one and closely with client,
Right. Right. Okay.
which is really just a bigger and a more personal version of what we do with solopreneurs anyway. The system is the
Right.
same. Yes.
Right.
So,
The system is the same. It's just coming out. It's being
yeah.
delivered differently.
And that is, Ruth said, the Kajabi is much more automated.
Right.
It is much more automated, and there is a prequel to the onboarding process that nurture. There's the education and
Mhm.
all of that. There's really developing that relationship before they
Right.
finally raise their hand and say, I may be interested.
Exactly. Right.
And then we nurture, and then once they finally says, okay, I'm ready,
Mhm.
then they go and they sign up, they do the program, and then there is a follow-up. There's a number of automated follow-up emails
Mhm.
after the program.
We just don't do that in our one-to-one, and that's why I'm so interested in what you're doing now.
Right. Yeah. And
Let's
so
automate a little bit more, because as I said, we
Yeah.
don't start from scratch each time. It's a bit of a cut and paste.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hopefully we're
definitely.
Here, your first name, but
Yes. Yes.
We've seen that before,
Yeah.
done that before.
Yes, that happens every once in a while, and you're like, oh,
yes, you're very important to us.
yes, you're very important to us. First name.
That's right, and last name.
Yes, first name and last name. Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, good. And so why do you think so Kajabi basically, I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with Kajabi. It's a big CRM. You can host websites, courses in there, lots of different stuff. So basically it gives you some automations that you can go through to set up. But when you're looking at your other process of doing one-to-one, you haven't figured out how to do that because it's not as cut and dry. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah, basically.
and the numbers aren't as big either. I mean,
Right.
probably I mean, we could daily be getting purchases.
Definitely.
Where this is obviously in
Yeah.
our direct stuff.
Right. And
it's
if that wasn't automated, you would be spending a lot of time having to go through all of that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
So yeah, when it's on a smaller basis, when you're onboarding, even a couple of clients a week, you do feel like it's, more easily handled. But one thing that we don't think about when we're doing it that way, is, well, what happens when it does increase, right? And then we have to try to think about, well, how am I going to do this now, because I can't keep doing it manually. And so
Exactly.
that's why it's, I always tell people, do it before you think you really need it. And that's so hard to do because you're like, it's working fine now, I don't really want to. Why do I need to spend the time and money on that? But what I've found is that when people do wait until they absolutely need it, they're to the point of frustration. They don't have the time to sit down and think about, how does this need to work, or to research how to, and to actually implement it and test it, right?
Yeah.
Because I always like to, take the time. And, I highly suggest when you implement any of these processes, is that you have a period of testing. And so, that could even be a few weeks of testing. Whatever it takes to make sure that when you roll it out, it's working, 110% efficiency. So that's awesome. Does anybody else want to share? I think Mike might have a good process. I know I've worked with Mike, and he seems to have the process down. Is that something that it just comes off like you do, Mike, or do you feel like you have, some kind of process down?
Maureen, I get a lot of people who tell me that they think I got it down, but the dirty little secret is I definitely don't.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, similar to what they were saying, there's the onboarding part of the, getting like the payment set up and the client
Right.
portal for invoices and all that kind of kickstarts everything.
Right.
Right. And because, with the work that we do with companies that are looking for websites and for maintenance plans and whatnot, that's where all of that lives. Right. So we want to get that set up and be able to give people a place where, they can kind of, their information can be entered, right? They can go and check in on things.
Yeah.
And, once that's set up, then the rest of the communication for the web strategy and development process happens based on milestones.
Right.
So it is a lot of email communication that is based on, it is copy and paste, right, from certain things
Right.
that are happening, but a lot of it also does happen in Zooms or in-person meetings. And then, the follow-up from there, it's, yeah, I mean, largely it's canned, but there's not necessarily like a CRM process
Right.
tool that we're using.
Okay. All right. Well, good. This is really good information from you guys. Thanks for sharing. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit about your pain points. And today we're really going to start from your discovery call. This may not be a call. I know that Mike and I do a lot of in-person networking. So that may be, a one-to-one client meeting that you're having where they're saying, yes, let's move forward. So we're starting at that interaction where you're giving your pitch. Okay. You are basically, hoping to move forward with a yes or a no after this interaction. There's always that, I need to think about it. Maybe, I don't know if you guys actually, if this is a one-to-one for you, Ruth and Avril, if you, pitch on, at that interaction, if you quote at the interaction, or if you're sending a proposal. For me, I do both. Whatever, if I'm thinking, wow, this is really specific, I've got to come up with a custom proposal for this, then I will follow up with a handwritten proposal. If not, I kind of know, okay, they're falling into one of 3 of my packages, so I'm going to offer them this one. So I'm going to talk a lot about my process today, which I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn, just kidding. But I don't want the focus to be on me, but I have to give you an example. And so I want to show you what my process looks like. This is not what everybody's process is going to look like. So know that each individual person's process is, you know, custom to their needs and their client needs, and their business. So okay, so we've got 3 scenarios, right? Mostly 3 scenarios. We could have some other scenarios thrown in there, but we won't get into that today. So we've got 3 scenarios. We've been on a discovery call, a one-to-one meeting with this person. We're pitching them our services, how that we can best help their business. We may, at the end of this meeting, we may get a resounding yes. We may get a no, you know, they're already know that they're like, no, something, you know, our price, you know, something just, you know, they say no, or they need to think about it, you know, send a proposal. They want to look over some stuff in writing. Okay. So that's where they're going to fall into our maybe category. So either way, those three scenarios, they each need to be nurtured in different ways, right? But unfortunately, today I can't go into each one, but we are going to go into the yes people. Okay. We're going to go into the yes people. I will touch base a tiny bit on the no and the maybe, but we're really going to focus on the people that have said yes. Let's move forward. Okay. Okay, so you're on the call, you're in the meeting, we've got a resounding yes. All right, so tag, you're it. Okay, we're going to talk about some tags today. I know some of you have CRM, don't have CRM. I know all of you guys know what a CRM is, but for our recorded audience, we're going to talk about CRMs, customer relationship managers, which most of you know is where we basically house all of our client data information, right? If you were on last week or saw the recording, that's how we have all our information in one spot. And so we're going to talk about tags. I will talk about HubSpot because I know Ruth and Avril have HubSpot. I'll talk about that a little bit. And they call it something different, but some form or fashion, your CRM should, or wherever you're housing your people, which we'll talk about in a second, should have the ability in some way, shape, or form to tag or sort them in some sort of way. Okay. And so let's just since we have just a couple of people on, I know that Ruth and Avril people are going into HubSpot. Mike, where are you keeping your client data information?
So much more of a manual process. I've tried a few CRMs and I just, haven't found something that gels with me exactly. So I actually have created a specific spreadsheet where, I'm able to, add certain information, add the kind of info that I see, color coded the way that I want it. I'm mimicking a little bit of the look of a Monday.com. If you're kind of familiar with that, that's kind of what I'm going for, but I did kind of set up my own.
Okay. All right. No shame in the spreadsheet. And Beth, where are you storing your client information?
Yeah, right now we have something called SalesFlare, not Salesforce, but SalesFlare. It's a very, it has the pipeline. And then we're also working, I'm trying to see if I can do most of the things in Constant Contact right now, because our sales team is just reduced. So we're kind of like, do we need it? Do we not? So right now I have the two communicating with each other.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And are you able to do you know if you're able to do automations and such out of that?
Yes, I know that we can actually do something in tags.
Okay.
We can put people in lists or tags as
Okay.
well. So,
All right.
yes,
Okay. And I know that you're working on trying to figure out how to zap those too.
we're trying to do that. Yes.
Okay.
See
All
if
right.
yep. Since last
Okay.
time. Yep.
All right. Yes, we went all through Zapier last time, Mike. If you need to go back and watch that webinar, we went all through Zapier and how to figure out how to integrate things and stuff like that. So that was fun times. So yeah, so at this point, right, when we get the yes, the person is ready to move forward with our services, they're either already in our CRM somehow. For me, that is because they came in through a form, right? Whether they scheduled a call with me, that, or depending, they came in through a lead form, that form is connected with my CRM. So if we have gotten to the point where they're having a call with me, they are in my CRM. Okay. Or B, you're going to manually add them at that point. So Mike has his amazing spreadsheet that he uses. So I'm assuming that he's going in there and adding them manually. So dependent upon which one of these you're doing, that's fine. As long as you don't forget to do it. If you want to talk about how to automate that and with the forms, then that's something you guys can definitely hit me up for later. We'll talk about your forms. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a few minutes too. So that we'll touch base on web forms and things like that. And so when these people come into my CRM, I tag them with send proposal, okay? Because whether or not they have said yes or no, I always send a physical proposal because I want them to have something to look over. It feels more professional to me. And it also sets off workflow automation for me. There's other ways I could tag them to set off the automation, but this is how I have chosen throughout the years that works best for me. And so the proposal part is my next step. So that's why I tag them with that. And so one thing that people get caught up with when they talk about CRMs and this process is we hear a lot about sales CRM, client nurture CRMs, sometimes people are only thinking about a CRM from a sales perspective because a lot of them are heavy on the sales perspective. And the ones that I like to use are, both of them are integrated together. So basically, I call them buckets. Some people may call them pipelines, depending on what what wording you're used to. But basically, right, from the time they come in from a lead form, they go through some different buckets that are tagged with different things. So for instance, mine would be, a lead initially, and then that would go from there through the sales process, right? Different stages of the sales process. And then as soon as they click yes, accept on the proposal, they're going to go into my next set of buckets, which is for my clients, right? And so they're going to go into different buckets. When they've, they're in the onboarding process, they've been onboarded. Okay, now they're moving into one of my 3 monthly packages. And so I keep those separate. So depending on what they're tagged with is going to determine how they're onboarded. Okay. And so while I'm telling you about my process and my CRM, you can also use this process in other ways, in different CRMs. Okay. And we'll talk about that too, and how that may look differently. Okay. So basically, here's one of my workflows. Okay. So the client, at this point, the client has accepted the proposal. They've said, yes, I know 110% they're moving forward. Okay. So what's going to happen next? So they've been tagged, right? As soon as they click submit or accept on the proposal, they have been tagged in my system. So immediately they get an email that is my client onboarding and welcome packet. Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit about that and what's in that. And I'm sure some of you guys may have that. You just call it something different, or it may be one of those things where you're like, I know I need to do that. I just haven't taken the time to do it yet, which could be the case for a lot of us. And so then from there, depending on your CRM, depending on what systems, what integrations you're using, I have mine to go about 4 hours later. They're going to get a contract and an invoice. Okay. And so the reason I send those together, literally they're in one form, is because I like for them to really, they're going to go through 2 steps in one interaction. Okay. So they're going to sign my contract and they're going to pay for the invoice at the same time. Could I separate them? Yeah, I could separate them, definitely. But I like to simplify it as much as possible. I've never had a complaint with sending it together. So that's how that works for me. But after that, I create a Google file for each of my clients that I work with, because we share information back and forth. And so right now I have it set up just to give me a task to remind me. I can also have it remind Pamela, who's my right-hand girl, to create the Google folder and send it to the client. Okay. So after that, my client is going to go into a different bucket. Okay. They've basically been onboarded. They've gotten all the information I wanted to send them. They've gotten my processes and expectations in my welcome packet, you know, how I like to work and things like that. And so they've pretty much gone through my onboarding process. And so as soon as that happens, their project status changes, which for sake of, you know, ease of terms, they go into a different bucket, okay, in my system. And so basically every time, and this will happen as soon as they fill out the onboarding form. Okay, so the onboarding form is going to have some information. I'll show it to you. It's going to have some information as far as things that I need access to. And things like that. So I'll show you an example of that form. So basically, as soon as that form is complete, their project status changes. Okay. This last one down here, send thank you email after an invoice is paid. I can basically put that anywhere in my flow. Because, you know, I could move that and I could put it right after send contract and invoice, because the trigger is what makes the action happen, is paying the invoice. Okay. It's not changing the project status after the form's complete. Beth, you're muted.
I had a question about the tagging process. Is that automated then? So like as soon as you check a box, like, or do you have to go in and change the tag itself to get it?
Mine is automated.
Okay.
Mine is automated. So as soon as my form is complete, the tag is changing.
Okay. So is there a checkbox that gets like, does it get put into their file? And then that's when it says, or do you just check a box, or somehow you have some type of task completed and that's when it knows to put the tag on?
So in what I use, when they complete the form and hit submit, that's the trigger.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Nothing else has to happen. They are moving from one tag to the next.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Now there are other things, like let's go back to create the Google folder and send it to the client. So if I wanted something to be triggered after that action, I would have to, which I don't have anything triggered off of that action. Okay. It's just a reminder for us to do it. But if I wanted the project status to change then, or I wanted the email to go out automatically, I would have to create something in the workflow or in the integrations that said, hey, when this is checked off, this happens. So that's possible. To have it come from a task, a completed task. And that could be, something that is zapped with Asana or Monday or Trello, whatever you might be using for either project management or task management. I have a task manager in my CRM. And so I could have it directly in my CRM where I would click it. If I had this trigger to be after, after I create the Google folder, I check it done, and then it sends the email. I could do that. And I would physically have to check complete. Okay. So that I don't want to get too much into that because that gets more specific to what you're using. Right. So I could tell you all day about the exact wording that my CRM uses and the exact triggers and actions, but we're going to talk about that in a little bit, how every trigger and action and what can be automated in each system is going to be different. And so if you're not using a specific CRM, most of that is going to come through Zapier, integrating everything with Zapier, and what your CRM is, what the function capability is. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about my onboarding packet and my welcome email. Remember, we're setting our expectations and we want to set the bar high. And that goes, back, it's kind of a mutual expectations being set there. Okay, so this is a very simple email that I just put up here so you guys could see. So my email is simple because my form has a lot of information in it. Okay. So it's official. I'm so thrilled to be working together. Here's what happens next, right? 1, 2, 3. People want to know what's going to happen next. They're going to get their contract that they need to sign. I tell them, please just take a few minutes up front, basically, to make our onboarding process seamless, and, take a minute and fill out the attached form. And then I tell them, watch out for your invoice. Setting up auto pay is the way to go, because it's more convenient for both people if you go ahead and get them to set up auto pay. And I just thank them once again for choosing me. So inside my email has a form link. Okay. Now this could be whether you're using Jot forms or web forms, whatever you're using, you could include that form link. So simple email. So let's just go here. I'm actually going to go out of here for a minute and go right into my CRM. Show you guys this form. It's just the easiest way to. Sorry about that. Come on. I got so many things up on my Zoom. It's, the people are over here in front of this and the bar at the bottom. Okay, so let's see here. All right, so we're going to go into my forms and we're going to take a look at my client onboarding and welcome info. Okay, so basically, just so you know, my forms are able, they're pretty much, you can drag and drop, create it to look like a landing page, a website, whatever kind of form you want to have. But you may be using different types of forms, web forms, WordPress forms, Jot forms, type form, so many different forms out there. Okay, so basically I'm just welcoming them. I have, this is what I was telling you, that I had a lot of information in the form, so my email was kind of short. So I kind of welcome them again. Looking forward to getting started with them, but I need a little bit of info, right? We want to make everything go as smooth as possible. And so I tell them this is what's in this, the information you're about to see. I ask them, I tell them, okay, I remind them they've been invited to that Google folder. These are different things that you can put in there. That's helpful for us to work together. Right here around billing information is where there's going to be a big button that asks them to go ahead and pay their invoice. Okay. They can click right there and pay the invoice, and set up automated payments. All right. So I just tell them a little bit about how I bill. It's due on the 1st of the month, my contact information, what they can expect as far as when I'm going to get back to them, what are my main working hours that they're able to contact me, and things like that. And then I just have a place here for them, if they want to put any comments here. I recently added the initial spot because I think a lot of times when we send things, they just kind of get disregarded, they get glanced over. And so, I was running into some people that didn't know when they were going to be paying their bill and things like that. And so I was like, okay, let me just put a little initial thing in here. That way I know they've actually seen it. And then down here, this just kind of goes over, what I'm going to be helping them with. I'm asking them to list their accounts, give me some passwords if they're not using like LastPass or, one password and things like that. Asking for all of that kind of information, and their preferred way of communication. And so in this form, this is where you can kind of get some information to personalize your automations. Okay. So if I wanted to ask them when their birthday was, if I wanted to ask them what their cat's name was, you get the gist. Whatever you want to know about them, whatever you want to be able to say on a personal level to them. I mean, we don't want to ask those kind of questions, but, if you want to be like, oh, how's your husband, Bob doing, or, things like that, that is where you're going to collect that type of information. Okay. In your form. And so then, depending on what type of CRM you're using after the form is filled out would determine how you're able to use those kind of, that kind of, information. Okay. And so basically once they agree and submit this, remember I had a trigger that was, after the form was filled out, this happened. Okay. So once they fill out this form and they say agree and submit, that's when that trigger is going to happen. Okay. And so, the hard part about doing this type of webinar is that there's so many different ways people can do things. And so I kind of have to just touch base on everything. In mine, that is an instant thing that happens. If you're not using a CRM that has that capability, then that might be a zap that you have through your WordPress forms or your Jot form, or whatever it is. Okay. And so each specific person, theirs is going to look a little bit different in how you do it. But the overall thing that I want you guys to realize is that it's possible. Okay. There's a way. If you want it to happen, we will figure out how to make it happen. And so I want you guys to know that that is possible. Okay. So let me just go back over here to our presentation. Now that you've seen that form. Okay, so let's just go back and make sure I didn't miss anything, but this is where we're going to kind of talk about your forms. Yeah, okay. So like I said, these are my workflows in my CRM, which is called Dipsado. But so all of my forms, contracts, emails, automations, everything is coming from my CRM. Okay. It's all in one place, but you may not have a CRM that does that for you, and that's okay. You may be using Jot forms, WordPress forms, Typeform. You may have things going into Kajabi, HubSpot, Honeybook, different CRMs. I talked to somebody today. I talked to a gentleman today, and I said, "Are you using a CRM?" And he said, "Well, I have a couple." And I said, "Okay, let's talk about that." Okay. And so, which is a whole nother problem we could get into another day, but depending on what you're using is going to determine your workflow trigger. Okay. The trigger is what has to happen to make the action happen. Okay. So the trigger, let's go back to the trigger where my form is submitted. Okay. That is the trigger. As soon as they click on submit the form, then the action is that their tag is changing. Okay. And so they're actually coming out of, if you remember my first, when they first come on board, they were going into proposal sent. Okay. You can get as nitty gritty as proposal accepted, proposal sent, proposal accepted. You can make those buckets of categories, tags as detailed as you want to, or you can make them a little broader. I have mine a little broader because that's just how I like to look at my clients or my leads. I like to kind of look at them in a broader form and not see, okay, this person's received email 1 of my nurture sequence, or, but there are people that want to be able to look at their tags or buckets pipeline and see, okay, exactly where are these people in my pipeline. And that's okay too. That just comes in with, customizing your flow for you and how you like to see things. Okay, so does anybody have, where are your guys? I think Ruth and Avril, you guys have WordPress forms?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And Beth, where's your, do you have any forms?
Right now we have Jot form for our evaluations,
Right.
and then possibly Google Forms if we end up, because we're kind of tag teaming with his son right now on his account. So we're like, do we really use it enough, or will we need it? So Google Forms, I think we might work too.
Yeah, and definitely, this is where we think back to last week's presentation, where I kind of had all of the different places that you could have your client data, right? And we had, 10 to 20 different places, and then we have our CRM in the middle. And how do we get all that information into one place? And so this is where that comes in when we think about our processes. And when I had you guys write out the systems that you're using, the platforms that you're using, if you didn't include this, that's something to think about going back and including in that flow, just so you don't miss anything. Okay. Okay. So let's just say, for example, you're using a Zap. Maybe you have a WordPress form and you're using a Zap to get that form into your CRM, and that's okay, right? We know that, and we set up the Zap. And so it doesn't happen as automatic as, my process, or maybe another like Kajabi. We already heard that Kajabi allows you to set up those type of automations. And so the option, the available automations are going to be different depending on what you're using. And you may even think that there's nothing available. But mostly through Zapier, we can connect any of those apps together and make the integration possible and the automation happen. And so, okay, so let's say we have a WordPress form. It's coming into our, we have it zapped, so it'll go into our CRM. And it's, we're creating a proposal, or maybe we're creating a contract that's going to go out automatically. And then we're looking at, creating another Zap to integrate the next platform. So this is all fine, right? This is just something when it's not as cut and dry as I did it all in one place. It's okay. We just have to dig in a little bit further to see how do we want to integrate these two things? What needs to happen first? If you remember last week, we were on Zapier. We talked about how we may have to reverse something, right? In order for the Zap to work, for the integration to work, is where, we may have thought, okay, well, my WordPress form is going to come in and it's going to create a contact in my CRM, which may be HubSpot. And then I want the proposal to be created, okay? Or I want the contract to be created. Well, maybe you're having to use an outside platform to create your contracts, which is 75% of the people that I talk to, right? We have all these different systems that all these different things are in, and it's okay. We want to simplify those as much as possible before we actually create these processes. But when we've got those systems narrowed down that we're specifically using, that's where we have to dig in and really evaluate, okay, how here's point A and here's point Z. This is what I want to happen. How do I make it happen? Okay, we may have some different ways in there that we need to go, but it's all doable. Okay. So I don't want you to feel like I can't do it because I don't have a CRM, or I can't do it because I'm using, forms over here, my scheduler's here. I have to go here to make contracts. Okay. That can all be simplified and either put into one system, or if you're happy with it, it can be simplified, and there may be something that you're not using or systems are being duplicated, but we can still automate the process. Okay. So one thing I want you to think about in your streamlining your onboarding process is that the more places that we send our clients to, they're not going to know, right? They're not going to know they're going into these different platforms that we have. But every time we set up an integration or a Zap between two platforms, it's tech. And so there is always a possibility that something could fail. And so the more Zaps or integrations that you have in your process, the more, chance there is for error. Which is okay. We can handle that when it happens, because Zapier will notify us, hey, something is broken. There's a link that's broken, fix it. And that gives you, a notification. You click on it, you go in there and fix what's broken. And you're up and running again. But that can be time consuming. So that's where you would probably want to think about, simplifying the amount of platforms that you're having to use, or know that it's just something that you're going to have to fix every once in a while. Okay. The other thing that you run into when you're using so many different platforms, right, are just for an example, right, are people are coming in through a web form maybe, or a spreadsheet. And now we've got to go over here to create a contract in DocuSign. And that, we had to send them our Calendly link, which came from another place, which is another place their information is. And now I have to go into my QuickBooks to send them an invoice. Every time we're moving them around, we're creating a chance to let them get stale, right? If it's not automated and streamlined, we could forget what part of the process we got to with them, right? And so we don't want to let them sit there collecting dust. As Beth knows, as my business coach, I talk a lot about, we put people into our CRMs and our systems, and that's great, but that's just the first step. We can't just put them in there without doing something with them, right? And so just because we went into DocuSign and created the contract, what do we have in place after that? What's going to happen after that? I'm going to have to remember to watch for that contract to be signed. I'm going to have to remember, let me send them my lovely onboarding email that welcomes them. Oops, I forgot to do that. Right. So when they're either not integrated or they're so scattered and we're having to do it manually, then we're just, we're increasing that chance of forgetting or making our processes look broken to them. And so that's why we need to be up on it. That's where people that are against automations will usually come around, even if it's a simple email thanking them or yes, you sent out the contract. So it gives them peace of mind because they've gotten communication, and it gives you peace of mind because you don't have to remember to do it. So does that make you incompetent? No, not in any way. It makes you more efficient. It lets you focus on growing your business, being in your zone of genius, being at family dinner without being on your phone or worrying, did he sign that contract? Did that contract come back to me? Oh my gosh, I've got to get this email out to him. Or even go back to the very beginning in the proposal stage, right? Somebody may be getting 2 proposals. The first person they talked to got their proposal in that day and you forgot because you were busy and you sent it out 3 days later. You're risking the possibility just because the other person was more efficient that you're going to lose that sale. So lots of things to think about when it comes to that. Okay, so this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about HubSpot, which is all the terms. This one thing you guys have to know, the terminology in every CRM system platform seems to be different. Okay, so when I talk about tags, that is a more universal term. Whereas there are a lot of systems that use that terminology. But when you go into other systems, sometimes you have to be creative. You may have been using this in one and you go into another one and you're like, well, what do they call it here? And so let's just say, for instance, in HubSpot, theirs are called properties. Okay. And so we wouldn't say tag your client or tag your lead. We would say assign their property. Okay. And like if we look at Pipedrive, that's going to be all about the pipeline status, different things like that. So the reason I like to use tags is because tags come in a lot with my CRM and also with our email marketing. Okay. Most of us know that, our email marketing can be, depending on what you're using, Constant Contact, MailerLite, any of those different platforms, you're going to be able to tag people in those. And so that's kind of why I use that terminology. So just kind of know that it's kind of interchangeable. That may not be what it's called or you're familiar with. So if we think about HubSpot, so they're called properties, unless you get one of their add-ons, and then they're called hub tags, which is a whole nother situation. But so now that we, have determined how we're going to tag the people, that's where we can start really creating some automated workflows. Okay. Now let's just say you may be in a CRM or get into a CRM. Do not think just because you're in a CRM, all of this is possible. You may be on one level. You may be on their free level. It's not possible. Okay. They may want to sell you different. And that's where, doing a really good evaluation before you get into a CRM is really critical. But you may be in a free or lower price CRM, and those things may not be available to you unless you go up to, their business plan, or, for instance, in HubSpot, it's their professional or enterprise plan. And so that's important to know when you get into the CRM, which plan you need to be in. Some of them are cut and dry. This is the price. This is what you get. And some of them are not. So that's important to know, because that's going to play a big part when you start creating these processes. because if you get in there thinking you have one thing and you have the ability to do that, and then you don't, you may be back to square one. Okay, so I'm going to caution you, because the benefits of creating these processes and automating your process and workflows could include some freedom and peace of mind for you. Okay, so beware that you could be on vacation and be getting paid and having contracts signed. You could be at your kid's soccer game, not being on your phone, watching for Joe's proposal or contract to come back, and or sending an invoice and getting paid all at the same time. Okay, so just caution yourself with that. If you're scared of that, then you may want to hop off right now. Yeah, so guys, the reason I created these processes and systems in my own business is because that's what I wanted for myself. I wanted to be able to be present with my family. And when I say present, I mean, right, I'm present when I'm at work, but I'm present when I'm with my family. Okay, there is a time, my kids are older now, they're teenagers. I know Mike has little ones, but they're at different stages in our lives. There are things that we need to be present for, and that may just be ourself, right? But we don't need to be constantly worrying about the back end of our business. And so streamlining, like I said, the onboarding process is just one piece of your client journey. And a lot of these systems that we're talking about implementing are duplicatable and able to be taken into other processes in our business. But since we're just focusing on that today, even just taking that one piece, really focusing on this one piece, which is getting your onboarding streamlined, think about how much time you would free up, how much peace of mind you would have not having to constantly watch your phone or send reminder emails for people to sign their contracts or pay their invoice. When we've got so for instance, for me, I've got those invoice reminders set up automatically and things like that. So setting up some automations can save you so much time, give you more time to be present with your family. I can't tell you how many times I've been on vacation and I see parents on their phone or on their laptops, their kids are on the beach playing with mommy or daddy, and they're sitting by the pool because they need to work, which is okay. We do want to have the ability to take our work with us, right? But sometimes we just need to be present. And we have those kids, mommy, daddy, when are you going to be done working, tugging on us at the kitchen table sometimes. And what would it be like if we could just say, I'm here, I'm done, like I'm all yours, right? How, we want to be able to say that more often. And so, yes, so the onboarding process is just one little part of that journey. And so if you are interested in learning how to create those processes in the rest of your client journey, then that's where we would want to have a call so we can really dig into your personal situation, your business situation. So yeah, that we would kind of go over, and I could teach you the how-tos to do the rest of it. And guys, these are just part of the systems that I've created, tested, and proven over the years. It's so hard to go into like every little piece, how to exactly do it. But one thing I want you to take away is that it is possible no matter what you're using. One, we either go in, we simplify what you're using. Two, we create some new processes, get you some new systems set up. Or three, we optimize what you already have. So there's several ways to kind of look at it. And so next week, we're really going to dive into our client relations. And in those client relations, to improve our client relations, we need to first improve our onboarding. We need to streamline some other parts of our business before we can really get into improving our client relations. Okay. And so that's why I set up the webinar series as I did. While it's totally, you're totally able to take one or all three. They do all work together. And so if you didn't get number one and you want access to that, please just let me know. And so, yeah, so I could give you the same answers about why it's important to streamline your onboarding process. The answers I gave in the beginning about increasing your productivity, client retention, and referrals. But like I said before, I really want you guys to think about how you want to be treated when you work with somebody and expect nothing less for your clients. Okay. That comes in when I talked about, how we include that emotional piece in our sales and marketing. And sometimes we don't think about that during, once we've got the client, we're kind of like, yay, it's all business. Right. And so I don't know about you. I do love to have a personal touch in my business. Right. I am all about building relationships. And so I definitely think about how I want to be treated, when I'm working with somebody else. And so today we've talked about a lot of stuff, right? And some of you, hopefully none of you are feeling confused. I know I can give a lot of information, and I have broken it down to as small of pieces that I feel like it works best. But I do want you to know, if you are thinking, okay, I really need to do this. How do I do this? How do I really accomplish these processes that we've talked about today? You could DIY it, which that's great. If you're a DIYer, you want to dig in, really figure it out, get your hands dirty, take some time to research it. You've gotten some ideas from the past 2 webinars. You learned how to use Zapier last time to do some integrations and things like that. And you've gotten some ideas for some flows today and the possibilities that you could implement to start streamlining that process. If you're a DIYer, but you like a little bit of support, you can hop on over into my support group for $99 a month. And I'll send you some information about that. What that does is that gives you the opportunity to come into a group with other people that are creating processes just like you. You can see what they're posting about. You can post your questions on a daily basis and have them answered either by myself or one of my team members. And sometimes you may come to the group with a question and you get it answered before you even ask it, because somebody else has asked, almost the exact same question. So it's kind of nice. People will share flows that they've created. You get access to a whole library of videos that I've created on how to create these systems, and also PDFs with step-by-step instructions on how to create some of those systems in your business. Along with, I'm stuck, I'm creating this integration and I can't figure it out. And then if you're more of, hey, I need you to do this, Maureen, I don't want to handle it, then you can definitely set up a one-to-one with me, which is a 3-hour streamlining call where we do it all together. And I implement it for you. And that's normally $375. And if you do that today, it's $250. So those are just some offers. I want you to know, right? I kind of feel like my last webinar, I kind of taught it to you. And then I was like, okay, guys, have at it. Like, have fun with that. And I want you to know that there are other ways that you can implement what we've talked about. And I want to give you the support to be able to do that. And so whether that's a question in a group, that you're coming to whenever you have an issue, or that's a one-to-one, I'm here to support that. So do you have any specific questions about what your process might look like? You might say, I have A and B. Is that something I can do? Is this possible? What are some questions that are going through your guys' mind right now? Okay. Ruth, you guys are good?
Well, we're just, we're absorbing it. And I was just
Yeah.
saying to Advil, the next time we do a webinar with you, I'm going to take Advil before that. It's a lot of information. I mean, it's so incredibly valuable. I can't even tell you, but wow, is it a lot?
It's kind of
Yeah.
like with Lisa, you know, you just hurt the brain after a while.
Yeah. But fabulous info, and it certainly got us thinking about
Okay.
a lot we need to get going. So
Yeah.
we will be in touch at some point.
Yeah. Okay. And I want you guys, all of you guys, you don't have to give me constructive criticism right now in front of everybody, but you guys, you know, this is my first webinar series that I'm doing. I've done a couple of webinars, free webinars before, but I would love your feedback, how to, you know, get you the information better, what kind of information you would like to have in front of you, anything like that that you can tell me. Go ahead and send me an email. I would love to have some feedback. Okay. Okay. So I am just so thankful that you guys were on today. You know, we have the ability, if you want to send me some questions later, please do so. Let me just hop in the chat real quick and make sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. We got recording. Okay. Great. Okay. I didn't right now. Tech difficulties. Oh, okay. Somebody was having tech difficulties. Okay. All right. I think we're good. One thing, if you have any questions about my CRM, a CRM that you're looking at, let me know, please. The reason I love what I'm using is because I've tried a lot of them over the years, and I'm always trying new ones, just so you guys know, because I want to know what the best thing out there is. And so I'm always investigating new things that come out. And I have found one that works best for me and most of my clients, but it's not one size fits all out there. Okay. And so if you need an evaluation, let me know. I'd be glad to do that before you try to set up any systems or processes or streamline your onboarding. And like I said, next week, we're really going to talk about how to improve our client relations. Some of what we've talked about the past 2 weeks will come in play as far as to improve our client relations. We probably want to have some of these processes set up, but I'm really going to teach you how to improve how you're, you know, nurturing them. And we can even go into, I know a lot of people have questions about the leads. And so we can even talk about some lead nurture as well and how to improve that relationship and actually get them in the door. So I thank you guys so much for being with me today. If I'll give you one more chance, raise your hand if you have any questions. And other than that, I appreciate you being supporters and hopping on to learn more today. And I hope to see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
wonderful
Bye.
day. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Maureen.
Bye, guys.